Hi, I'm Adam's Downboy, and welcome to the third video in our Destiny 2 Root of Nightmares Raid Guide series. As ever, I'd first like to thank my Muthacluckers Clan mates, Aaron PK, Frel UK, Minoni, Electric Sheep, Tukes and Zone Runner for the run. In this video, we'll be looking at Scission, the second encounter, which is mechanics based, so like Cataclysm, there's no boss here. Your aim is to get to the area's exit, moving up through 3 levels in turn. To clear each level, you'll need to grow both a light and a dark seed chain, each made up of 6 nodes to create a complete sequence before the timer runs out, while defeating all the adds on that level. You'll be using the gardener mechanic from the Cataclysm encounter, but now there are 2 types, light and dark. It's easy to see which is which, as the light seeds are white and the dark seeds are a light brown. So I'll just start with a quick reminder of the terminology I'll be using, taken from the first video in this series. The nodes can be in one of 4 states: buffed, active, inactive and dormant. When buffed, you'll see a formed seed with an aura that matches the seed's colour. An active node will show as a formed seed with no aura, and an inactive node will appear as a dark grey seed with a light dark helix around it. Finally, a dormant node will appear as a light dark helix without a seed. If you want a fuller explanation of the mechanic, then feel free to watch from the timestamp in the first video in this series. There's a link in the video description, and we'll be here when you get back. As you enter the arena, with the rally banner area in front of you on a floating island in the middle of a large central void, you'll see a left and a right side, each with 3 levels. Nearest to you on each side, there's a buffed node with an aura containing a dark seed on the left and a light seed on the right. You can't start the encounter by accident, so feel free to look around the ground floor of both levels to familiarise yourself with the layout. Spaced along each side facing towards the large middle void, you'll see 3 catapults, each with their small trigger crux in front. The first 2 can be used to cross from side to side, and the last launcher is angled so that you can reach the next floor up when you've completed a level. As we demonstrated a couple of times in the second video of this series, the catapults can feel inconsistent. Remember that reversing back until you're firmly in contact with the launcher and crouching before shooting the crux to activate seems to improve its reliability. At least that's what it seems to us. Looking along the length of each side, you'll see 5 dormant nodes in addition to the buffed node. However, the nodes you need to activate each type aren't all on the same side. 3 are on the starting or home side and 3 on the far or away side. The buffed node will always stay on the home side, so to create the seed chain, you'll need to use a catapult to alternate between the 2 sides. If you're planning to learn the mechanics, it's a good idea to get some ad clearing practice on both sides first, so you can get an idea of where the nodes are on each floor. Most are sited on the ground, but there are a few that are located on walls. You'll see from Prioni's map that on your home side, the seeds you're after are closer to the central void, while on the away side, they're by the wall. Shooting the buffed seeds starts the encounter, so you should coordinate the 2 sides with a countdown. This grants everyone inside the aura a timed buff, flux of darkness from the dark seed on the left side and field of light from the light seed on the right, which both last 20 seconds. At the same time, a 2-minute imminent expulsion wipe timer starts and adds will start to spawn in. These adds will include redolent centurions with immunity shields matching the home node type. To damage them, you'll need to be holding the flux or field buff while you're shooting. Something we only recently noticed was that a graphic appears on each side wall to provide a visual reminder of the progression of the imminent expulsion timer, which is a nice touch. If the timer does run out, you'll find that its name is a pretty accurate description of what's just about to happen to your fireteam. You'll need to complete the connection of both light and dark seed chains to end the wipe timer on that floor, and then kill all the adds to progress. As in Cataclysm, the buffed node will remain at node 1 until the seed is shot 3 times, after which the buffed node will switch to node 3 to use to connect nodes 5 and 6. Also, as before, only someone with the correct buff can extend the seed chain. If a node is activated incorrectly, the message "Nodes of Splendor have been disrupted" will appear on screen and your runner will lose their buff. The nodes themselves will also disappear for 10 seconds, so you won't be able to make progress. This won't necessarily end a run, but it does mean a 20 to 30 second delay of your 2 minutes. The path followed to create the seed chain will be consistent each time. The odd numbered nodes 1, 3 and 5 will always be on the home side, and the even numbered nodes on the away side to be cleared in order 1 to 6. Your fire team will need to split into 2 teams of 3, 1 per side. As you might have done with Cataclysm, it is possible to run the encounter successfully with a single runner jumping back and forth between the 2 sides and handling the whole seed chain creation and 2 gunners on ad clear. But this is the least efficient method, adding considerably to the time spent travelling between nodes and gives less room for error. We don't show this method during our run as it's not the Clucker preferred strategy, but I've included this graphic to show the route from the light side's perspective. The dark route would be the mirror image starting from the left hand side. A better way, which can also be used to introduce newer players to the Gardener mechanic, is to have 2 runners and a gunner. The first runner will connect nodes on the far side and the second connects nodes on the home side. This approach is a lot more efficient, as the more experienced first or away runner traverses between the 2 sides and activates the even numbered nodes, while the second or home runner stays on the starting side to activate the odd numbered nodes and can help with ad clear when they're not too busy. Finally, the gunner is on pure ad clear duty with responsibility to gain the buff to deal with redolent shielded ads. For simplicity's sake, I'll illustrate the mechanics from the light side perspective as it's identical to the dark team on the left, which will be doing exactly the same thing in parallel. After the away runner shoots the first light buff node in step 1, your away runner will use the nearest catapult to head over to the far side to activate the second node in step 2 and call out that it's been done. The home runner and the gunner will stay close to node 1 and clear ads. When they hear the call, the home runner shoots the buff node 1 with the gunner in the aura as well if possible to pick up the buff. In step 3, the home runner makes their way to the third node to activate it while the away runner returns. The home runner should again call out that the light node is done as it's step 4 and continue helping with ad clear. The away runner can now shoot the buff node 1 for the third time to pick up the buff and move the buff node to node 3. The away runner then catapults over as per step 5 to activate the 4th node and calls out when it's done. The home runner, waiting near node 3, shoots the seed and takes the buff while the away runner returns as per step 6. Again, if the gunner is nearby, they should be in the aura to grab the buff too. The home runner can then make their way to the 5th node to activate it, calling that it's done as per step 7. The away runner regains the buff from node 3 as per step 8 and catapults back to the away side as per step 9 to the 6th and final node to activate it and complete the seed chain for that side. The buff node will then move to node 5 as per step 10. The third way to approach Scission for more confident Guardians is to use 2 runners as efficiently as possible, having each connect both light and dark nodes, cutting down the number of catapult trips by ensuring that they never use one without carrying a buff to connect a node on the other side. This means ad control is easier again with 2 dedicated gunners in each team. Again, I'll talk through the mechanics from the light side, with the dark side being the mirror image. After gaining Field of Light from the buffed light node 1 at step 1, the light runner crosses the void using the catapult to activate node 2 as step 2 and calls this out. The dark runner will also call out when they've activated their second node. Then, rather than crossing back across the void again, they will take Flux of Darkness from dark node 1 as at step 3 and use it to activate dark node 3 as per step 4, calling that out when done. They then return to the buffed dark node 1 to regain the buff as per step 5 before crossing the central void with a catapult as at step 6 to activate the dark node 4 as per step 7. Now they're back on the light side, they can take the buff from light node 3, which is now the buff node as per step 8, as the dark side runner will have concurrently activated light nodes 3 and 4. They can then use the buff to activate light node 5 as at step 9. They'll then return to node 3 to pick up the buff again as per step 10, before crossing over the void with a catapult to activate light node 6 and complete the chain as per step 11. Whichever of the 3 methods is used, the runner will now be on the opposite side from where they started. The runners can use a catapult to return to their starting side, but it's more efficient for them to stay on the same side as the 6th seed and swap the initial buff collected each time. Once node 6 is activated and the seed chain is complete, all the nodes of that type will emit a pulse of light, the imminent expulsion timer will disappear, and you'll see the message "Your ascent is blocked by interlopers," a new spawn of Redolence shielded adds, including a yellow bar mini-boss Redolent Centurion. The buff node will also shift to the 5th seed position and can now be used at will for anyone on that side to gain or refresh their buff to enable ad clear. While the runners are connecting nodes, gunners will be responsible for ad clearing. You'll see that among the rank and file Cabal ads spawning in on each level, there are orange bar Major Centurions that are immune to unbuffed damage, Redolence of Decay on the dark side and Redolence of Splendor on the light. To kill them, you'll need to have the matching buff active in your feed, which you can gain from being in the buffed seed aura when a runner shoots to collect their buff from nodes 1 and 3, or after the 6th node is connected from the 5th node where you can collect it at will. It's a good idea to have the 3 team members on each side inside the buff node aura when the first node is shot initially on each floor, so that they all gain the buff. This should give the gunner enough time to kill the first Redolent Centurion along with the other spawning ads. After starting each floor, gunners should initially hang about between the 1st and 3rd nodes to clear ads, being ready to return to the buff nodes. The runner should call out when they're on their way to regain the buff, so that the gunners can meet them inside the aura to gain the flux or field buff. Gunners must also be ready to quickly erase a barrier colossus that spawns after the 4th node is activated, as this can shred your runner if left alive. Alternatively, you can ignore the Redolent Centurions, perhaps neutralising them with Stasis Freeze or Strand Shackle effects, and focus on clearing all the other ads. You can then shift to Redolent ads when all 6 nodes are connected, and the 5th node can be shot at will to refresh the buff, so that you can then finish them off. Once all the ads on both sides of a floor are killed, you'll see a message on screen reading "Energy travels upwards, beckoning you." The first node on the next floor will become buffed, and the trigger crux for the final catapult of the level will appear, which you can now use to launch up to the next floor. Make sure the fire teams on both sides are ready to go before counting down and coordinating the 2 activations. The next 2 floors will follow the same pattern as the first. The main problem inexperienced players might face is accidentally triggering nodes out of turn. The home runners, if you have them, and gunners need to be careful not to disrupt the nodes, particularly if your runner is on the far side, as this will waste a lot of time and there's not much of it to spare. To be safe, never shoot at ads from inside the aura of a buffed node. Be aware that AoE damage will also trigger the node, so be careful using grenades, melee attacks or supers nearby. Even a well can cause problems with the damage it causes to enemies when cast. Finally, while there's no timer on screen, if you take too long to kill the remaining ads after completing the chain on a floor, this will also trigger the imminent expulsion wipe, so you'll need to be fairly speedy with your cleanup. Once you've connected all 6 nodes on the 3rd floor and cleared all of the ads on both sides, the reward chest will appear near node 5 on the dark side. You can drop the Ness's Ablation shotgun, Michael's reference sidearm, Acacia's ejection trace rifle, arm, chest or leg armour here. Runners should be using loadouts that speed up movement and provide defensive buffs. A lightweight primary weapon to boost your mobility, a sword to help change movement direction, and exotic armour pieces that boost jumping ability and sprint speed, or that add healing ability or improve invisibility are all viable. Strand Grapple can be a lifesaver if you do have a misfire. You won't be engaging in combat that much, your primary focus is to stay alive and connect the nodes. Our experience is that Warlocks are the least viable class as a runner, unfortunately, as their jump is the least able to recover from a catapult launch that fires you too low. Gunners can choose any loadout that works well for ad clear, as long as they have good special and heavy options to burst down chunkier ads and pierce and kill barrier champions. In the absence of a piercing weapon, Strand Shackle Grenades will suspend a champion so that it's unable to raise its barrier for an easy kill. For our run, to illustrate the main ways of completing Scission, we used 2 runners per side on the first floor. These were Tukes and Minnow on the dark side and Erin and Frel on the light. For the 2nd and 3rd floors, we used the preferred clucker method of 1 runner per side completing both dark and light seed chains, Tukes and Erin running on both floors. The encounter starts with Tukes and Erin shooting the buffed seeds, while the other fireteam members stand inside the aura to gain the buff as well to deal with the first Redolent Centurion to spawn. As the away runners, Tukes and Erin use the first catapults to cross the central void and get to the 2nd seed to activate it, calling out when they're done. While they're doing that, the others focus on ad clear.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Dark done.
Light done.
The home runners, Minnow and Frel, then collect the buff from node 1 and use it to activate node 3, while the away runners use the catapults to return. When they're finished, they call that out.
Okay. Dark's done.
Done.
Tukes and Erin regain the buff from node 1. As this is the third time the node has been shot, the buff node shifts to node 3. They now use the catapult to cross the void and activate node 4 on the away side, calling out when done.
Okay, dark done.
Light done.
Activating node 4 spawns the barrier colossus near the 5th and 6th node on each side for the gunners to deal with, or, in Zone's case, get killed by. The home runners can now grab the buff from node 3 and use it to activate node 5, calling out when done, while the away runners return.
Dark's done.
Light done.
Tukes overcorrects from his catapult launch and falls into the central void, but is able to save himself by using his super, as Minnow shows once again that if you live by fighting lion, you'll eventually die by fighting lion. Unfortunately, Tukes' buff timer runs out before he's able to activate the 6th node, so he has to return to regain the buff. While I wouldn't recommend this ordinarily, after he's revived, Minnow takes advantage of the delay by taking the buff out of turn to fight redolent ads. Erin completes the chain of light seeds on the first floor and returns to the light side where they finish up their ads.
Oh. Haha, saved it.
Oh, sugar.
Although I just
Okay.
lost plus.
Light's done. You can take the buff.
Tukes picks up the Field of Darkness buff again and returns to the 6th node to activate it and complete the chain. You can see that it unlocks from Minnow's activation lockout just as he arrives. After completing the chain, he goes back to the dark side, which frankly we've all suspected for years, and the team finishes up their ads before both sides coordinate their launch to the 2nd level.
Dark is not done yet because I messed up. But I didn't die, so, you know, there is that.
Work with what you got.
Dark is no dark.
Wait for me, wait for me. Okay, I'm here. Thank you.
We're not going yet. We can't go yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, dark side is slow. Right. Okay,
Good to go.
3, 2, 1, go.
Go.
On the 2nd level, we run with the one runner both seeds method. Initially, both Tukes and Erin shoot the home side buff node 1 and launch to the away side to complete node 2.
Same again? Right. No,
No,
it's just
so
me and Aaron.
Fro, you and me are not doing it this time. It's just
Yep,
Erin
ready.
and Tukes. We're just
Yep.
tag play now.
All good. Okay, done.
Done.
After completing the 2nd node on the away side, both run to the away side node 1 to collect the buff and activate the away side 3rd node. The runners again return to the first node on their away side to recollect the buffs, which shifts the active node on both sides to the third node, and use the catapult to travel to their home sides, where they activate their home side fourth nodes. This causes the barrier colossus to spawn for the gunners to deal with. Tukes and Aaron both go to the buff nodes at position 3 on their home sides to recollect their buffs and use it to activate node 5 on their home side.
Done.
Finally, both runners collect their home side buff from node 3 and launch across the central void to activate node 6 on their away sides. Once the second floor is finished, they stay, rather than launching back to their original sides again, before the two teams move to the catapults to launch up to the third, final level. Having swapped, Aaron will be starting on the dark seed side and Tukes on the light side. As the teams travel up to the third level, we get our first catapult misfire, but as you can see, recovery isn't too much of a problem as Zone's revive orb appears on the active level, so Tukes can pick him up. If he'd fallen to a lower floor, he'd have to use the catapults at the end of each level to get back to the action. You can follow Tukes and Aaron again to see the one runner both seed strategy and the flow of communication between them, or the gunners to see how they coordinate to deal with the redolent adds.
Sorry this time.
Light's done.
Dark's done. We'll stay on this side, Aaron. Stay on your side.
Okay.
May as well. And then we'll just go up. And do opposite sides.
Real one. Yeah.
Let me know when I get the buff.
They're all done. Go for it. We're all done.
Still dead anyway.
They're all dead, Dave.
3, 2.
Oh, wow.
Olé.
Right, so
This is awkward.
Let's go. Done.
Yeah, I went the wrong way around. Dark's done.
Someone get in zone.
Yeah, I'll go get it.
Cool.
Kind of heading that way anyway.
Thank you.
I haven't got the buff.
Okay, I'm done.
Light's done.
Okay.
Dark's done.
Dark's done, you can get the buff. Or light's done, you can get the buff.
Yep,
Whichever
you
one I
can
just
all
did.
get buffs. Both can get buffs. Make it easy.
The buffet.
Oh, that's it. Now we have to wipe and restart because that joke was terrible.
You're welcome.
Well, at least it's a new joke. We've now got 9.
Yay.
Back up to 9. Awesome.
Shake.
yeah, coming. Thank you for waiting.
Welcome. Pro? Oh,
Yeah, I'm on.
So, that's Scission done. Like Cataclysm, it's hectic and, as I've found, can get quite complicated when you break it down and try to explain what's going on. But once as a runner you get confident with the relay, and as a gunner can anticipate where to go to get the buff and have good positioning and the tools to take down the barrier champion, then this becomes quite straightforward. Even a couple of deaths are recoverable from, and if you can avoid losing time from disrupting the nodes, you'll hopefully be able to finish the encounter quickly. I'd like to thank Kyber for permission to use their brilliant loot table infographic and Priony for their awesome encounter maps. As ever, on behalf of the Cluckers, thanks for watching, we hope that's helped, and may all your drops be God rolls.